He separates. He's to the 20, to the 10, to the 5. Touchdown, Florida State. Warwick got up third down.
Winky looking Winky. Wants to throw the knockout punch to Warwick. Warwick open. Touchdown. He does a touchdown. He did catch it. Touchdown, Florida State. Oh, Peter Warwick, how'd you do that?
Kermit Whitfield to the left side. A hole to the 30. Kermit Whitfield 30 to the 20. 15, 10, 5. Touchdown, FSU. Kermit Whitfield. A 100-yard touchdown.
Here's the snap. Winston rolling right. Throws the pass on the other.
It's caught. It's caught. It's caught. Touchdown, FSU. Kelvin Benjamin.
We're doing it for everybody. We're doing it big all over the country, all over the world. And I'm proud. I'm proud to say I'm a Florida State Seminole.
This is the Garnet and Old podcast with your hosts, Ryan Eastman and Vince Ciccarelli.
It is 7 p.m. It's Thursday night, so you're watching another live Garnet and Old Show. Vince, how's it going?
It's going well. 7 o'clock on the dot. No inside info, no contacts, no problem. And here I am in my luxurious virtual background.
It looks identical. I'm really excited.
Identical.
Yeah, it looks amazing. What I really need to do is I need to take a picture of your house and then put it in my background and really confuse people.
Yeah, how can they both be in the same place? It's magic.
It is magic. What also is magic is our growth, man. We're seeing a lot of uptake on views on YouTube. So for all of you that are watching on YouTube or on Twitter, like, subscribe, share it out to your friends. And again, we're really excited for all the new viewers out there. And listen, we're just fans here talking about Florida State getting ready for the season. And we're super pumped because it should be a good one.
It should be. And they are sharing it out, Ryan. That's why the numbers are going up. You got to love it. Thank you, everybody, for doing that and sharing it out, and continue to do so.
Vince, I figure we start the evening off with some changes to the NCAA, right? To the National Letter of Intent. What's going on, Vince?
Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff comes up, and some of it is just innocuous, stuff that you don't necessarily care about. But this particular thing is proposed that in the event that a head coaching change would happen, that a recruit would be able to basically rescind the national letter of intent that they signed. So in my opinion, this has been long overdue, right?
Yeah.
Coaches can leave whenever they want. But once, at least in the past, once a recruit signed on the dotted line, they were at least committed, for that year.
Yeah.
But now if your head coach leaves, I'm all for it. You should be able to change your mind as well if you're a recruit.
For sure. I think it's good for the game. I think of things like similar. I know it hasn't happened yet, but it's inevitable. Deion Sanders, recruits you as a high school senior to come play at Colorado. And then, that whatever that year is, I'm sure it will happen where he will leave Colorado and will head to a major Power 5 program. So when that happens, you kind of leave kids high and dry. I think of the kids that were committed to Jimbo, and thank God we ended that right before it got into the National Signing Day. So Jimbo was gone, I think in November, right? So we didn't even get the chance to get into that dangerous period of people committing to him and then him bouncing. But I just can imagine, Jimbo making it all the way to January and then deciding to bounce for A&M, because then we'd be left high and dry with, people that don't know if they can leave, get out of it, or whatever it is, get a hardship waiver. So it's just good. It's a right thing to do. If a coach can leave at a drop of a hat for millions of dollars, then players should be able to leave if the coach leaves.
Yeah, I just like I said from the beginning, I think it should have always been that way. Mm-hmm. And hopefully this gets the ball rolling and this gets done. The thing about the Jimbo deal, though, is that, he wasn't recruiting for at least a year prior to that anyway. Mm. So there probably wasn't a lot of recruits, at least high level recruits, that were going to sign on the dotted line because of him.
For sure. And in a similar vein of, I guess, NCAA involvement, something that's near and dear to my heart, for those of you who don't play video games, Uh, the last time we had an NCAA video game was NCAA 14, which technically came out in 2013. The great thing about that is that it was Jameis Winston and you had all those players. So for people like me who literally still own an Xbox 360 or a PlayStation 3 simply to play
This guy.
the NCAA football game and the rosters you can get offline from a website called Operation Sports. There's a forum where you can download it on a thumb drive and like update to the current rosters. We've been having to do that and suffer through that. And what's a shame is if it had made it one more year in the cycle, it would have been a PS4 game because the very next year PS4 came out and all PS4 games can be played on PS5. But because we didn't make that far, we are stuck on these busted consoles that are like, hanging on by a thread. And everyone was so excited when EA Sports announced, hey, we're returning to college football because of the NIL deals.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who haven't been following of it, it's one of those things like I get it before where, you would have players' names on the jerseys or people would create them and players wanted to be paid for that. Now that's possible. But listen, 5% of players are the kind of players in the NCAA that are probably even honestly would make any money off of their name, image, and likeness in a major college football game. And so EA Sports did a blanket policy where every player who basically gives up their NIL to be in the game would get $500 as a flat rate to be in the game, and that's what I thought would be a cool way to give players some money. Many of those players would have never seen
any dollars at all.
Any dollars. It's not like third string offensive lineman at Baylor is going to be
correct.
Any video games anytime soon. And then you get to immortalize yourself because you have your actual self in a video game. If you told me I could be an NCAA
Right.
I'd be thrilled. So here's where it gets complicated.
Yep. Greed.
Some players think that that's not enough, and they use the Madden example of how much the players get. But every player in the NFL is a top tier player in the world of college football equivalent. So it's like if you took every All-American and every Heisman candidate and every best player, that's like what the NFL is, the whole league. And there's only a certain number of people on each team, and there's only 30-something teams.
Right. There's a limited pool of players in the pro league.
So you have a bunch of this amount of money, but it only gets spread among a few hundred players. If they want the Madden amount applied to the NCAA football game, there's hundreds of institutions, and each roster can have 80, 90 players on it. And so you're talking about they would have to essentially, in total amount, triple the amount or quadruple the amount that they give as a whole pot, the NFL players.
Which they're not going to do. The game's not going to get made. The game's not going to get made if that's what's going to have to happen.
I do think it's going to get made because I don't think this has any merit. I think this is a few individuals, one of them being a player at Florida, who, think that they deserve more or by rights, should earn more off of this. And listen, could it lead to each player getting $750? That's probably where this lands. Is EA Sports sits down and goes, okay, with these players or the players union and says, okay, how about $750 or $1,000? I'm sure if you're at EA Sports, before you even start making this game, it's going to be a legal fiasco. You already know because of how complicated NIL is. So it's not like EA Sports is probably caught off guard by any of this. I'm sure they knew that there was going to be some challenges. Now, I think that'll be worked out, no problem, that part of it. What's interesting is, though, and here's where judges get involved. Lawsuits are being filed by certain teams' collectives who say they are the only ones who have the rights to bargain on behalf of that university and their players for NIL. So whereas EA Sports is trying to give a blanket to all universities, the same, directly to the players, this NIL collective is trying to say, no, you're not allowed to just go straight to the consumer. You have to go through us. We represent the NIL money. Now, do I think, based on what I read on the legal analysis of this that it's going to hold up. Absolutely not. I think honestly, this collective is probably looking for the same thing that some of the players are looking for, which maybe a slight increase in the amount. So no matter what, I think this all ends up in a few $100s or maybe even $1,000 per player, which I'm convinced that EA Sports knew that there was going to be some pushback, and they probably already had some wiggle room in the budget. It's going to sell. Vince, as this game comes out, it's going to sell insane.
I can't remember because I was reading the numbers on it, but let's just say, you know, the last game that they sold, you know, profited, you know, $75 million. I don't know.
Yeah.
Right. But then you take, you know, $500 times however many players are going to be in the game.
Yeah.
The company is not going to make the game just as a charity.
Yeah.
Like they want to make money on the game. At the point where that tips and they're not going to be profitable from the game's just not going to be made. So,
yeah.
I mean, I appreciate everybody wanting to make more money. We all do. But in the grand scheme of things, I mean, think of it this way. What do those players have to do in order to earn that $500?
Nothing.
Not a thing. Just be on a roster.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like other NIL situations where, you know, maybe you are a spokesperson for this, or you're going to sign some items at an autograph signing. Like there is literally nothing that those players have to do in order to get that $500 check. So I'm not saying maybe it should be a little bit more. I guess maybe it should, but to look at it in the light of the pros getting their dollars for that, that's very short-sighted from the player standpoint. Who's ever given them that kind of advice is you know, they don't understand. Maybe they don't understand the economics of the gaming industry itself.
Yeah, and listen, here's the thing. When NCAA 14 came out, the whole landscape was different. So I get it. Like, you know, things are changed with NIL being a factor now. But here's what a lot of people are discounting. Once the players sign, like, I'm good with it, right? What a lot of people don't realize is it's for EA Sports video game NCAA franchise. So if you're a freshman and you get your $500, that's it. Even if you are on the next 3 video games because you're, you know, sophomore, you know, junior, and so maybe that's some flexibility in the deal. I read it's a flat one-time payment for you being in the EA Sports college football video game, not specific to the
year.
To the year. So I could see where there's some negotiating power, you know, there. But let's be honest, Vince. If that's the case, the current structure, that's the case. It gets cheaper and cheaper for the NIL payouts as each year the NCAA football game comes out for EA Sports. So at first they have to pay out everyone up front. But then the next year they only have to add the freshmen. And so it's not a like cascading cost that's going to get more and more every year. So I really think that these players, you know, you're going to lose seniors and you won't have to pay them anymore. And then you're going to gain freshmen and you have to pay them. Right. And that's how it's going to go.
Yeah. I mean, it's there's probably a lot more nuance to it than I have the brain power to deduce.
By the way, you were right, Vince. You know how much approximately the NCAA 14 video game sold? About $70 million.
Oh, really? Well, I was a swag, so I was close. But so how many players are there? How many college players are there that are going to be in this? You know, you take each team has 85 scholarship players.
Yep.
Times however many teams there are going to be. Yeah. And then multiply that times 500 and see how much of that 70 million you're going to take a chunk out of if it's any more than, you know, $500 each. Anyway, I hope it gets made because it'll give me the opportunity to buy a brand new console, which I've been not too inclined to do.
Yeah.
Because there are not a lot of games that I play, but that one I would play.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And here's the thing. I don't even care if this thing gets kiboshed after the first game comes out.
That's right.
Because in modern consoles, the second the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One came out in 2014, all the console manufacturers basically made a promise that in future consoles they would be backward compatible to that point. Before that, the PlayStation 3 and 360 and everything, a lot of them were more designed differently in the way they architecture games, and it was harder to do. So even if we just get one college, EA Sports College Football 2024 game next summer, that'll last us another decade, even if it doesn't get made after that. So that's what I'm hoping for, is just give me one next generation game, because that's pretty much all I play for the most part on my consoles. I play Madden, I play EA Sports like PGA Tour,
Animal Crossing.
No. But college football was the last game, Vince,
Yeah.
that I would show up to GameStop at midnight for. Now these days you can just buy it online on the game console itself. But I was there at midnight at GameStop with my buddies, taking the day off work the next day to play NCAA football the entire day. And I hope we get a chance to do that again.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping to. I would rather not have to continue to play as the Stanford Tree in the Wii version of the game.
Yeah.
Where you could play the mascots against each other. Although that was fun with my kids.
Yeah. So next on the list here, and Vince put unicorn doing some things, and I know what he means. So this is in regards, I think, to a player interview this week.
Yeah, there was an interview this week with Jordan Travis and Trey Benson, and here they're asking the normal questions: how's summer going? What are the summer workouts like? Jordan was at the Manning Passing Academy. They were asking him questions about that, and then they started asking some questions about some newcomers to the team. The wide receiver that transferred in, help me with the name.
Keon
Coleman. They asked a question about him, and Jordan had glowing things to say about him. And then I think it was Brendan Sonnone asked a question about Destin Hill, and he had, before he even finishes asking the question, and the question is basically, how's Destin Hill? What are you seeing out of him? What kind of player, whatever. And Trey Benson, he doesn't even answer. His eyes just get really big.
Yeah.
And he, it's almost like
he went like this. He went.
And he's trying to collect his thoughts. So if you're interested in watching that, it's at the 10-minute, 50-second mark, and you can see what I'm referring to here. Without saying any words at all, Trey Benson said a lot of stuff there. And, Destin Hill, we waited a long time, and then everybody kind of knew he was coming, or we thought he was coming.
Yeah.
But everybody's kind of like, hey, hold your horses. He hasn't played for years, and you never know what you're going to get. And then he shows up, and it's still like, hey, hold your horses. You still got to get in a game. But apparently we're going to see, some more of him than maybe we thought we were going to see.
Yeah, because right now they're doing player-led practices and everything. And here's the thing. We get really spoiled with this situation because it's not very often. Based on when he graduated versus him actually finally getting here, he's probably almost 21 years old. So that's another 2 to 3 years for an 18-year-old's body to develop into. You see it all the time in college. They come on campus as a freshman. By the senior year, they're like, okay, they have an NFL body. They've developed into their actual man body instead of their young man body, and that happens a lot. In this case, we get Destin Hill with full 4 years of eligibility, 21 years old, in peak physical shape.
Yeah,
and
with
the
no wear on the treads.
Yep. The personal maturity, he kept him. It was actually really impressive that he kept himself in game shape for 2.5, 3 years without even playing JUCO. He was doing nothing. He wasn't playing organized football at all. He was going to his former coaches at high school and asking them to help him, keep up. But I mean, it's incredible. You would assume he would like Carlos William, where he too many donuts in the off season in the NFL,
Yeah, well, I mean, he had a singular focus to get on track and get to the university, and regardless of what the reasons were that kept him from coming when he was supposed to, for that kind of focus to happen in a person that young is pretty impressive in general.
For sure.
So yeah, if you're interested, I mean, when I first saw the video, I kind of chuckled a little bit, because facial expressions really say a lot.
For sure. And to just go on from that with Keon Coleman, if you guys want to have a fun time, just pop onto YouTube and type in Keon Coleman freshman highlights and just watch my man make contested catch after contested catch. He's not the fastest guy. He has decent speed, but he's one of those guys that just bodies up corners and literally moves them out of the way to go get a catch. Very similar to Kelvin Benjamin. Kelvin Benjamin wasn't smoking anyone off the line, but he could high point a ball and he could body you up and get you out of the way. And you pair that with, the 100,000 other receivers we have right now with Johnny Wilson. I mean, I can't imagine a team right now, Vince, if we were playing ourselves and we were like, all right, so we got to guard Johnny Wilson. We have to guard Keon Coleman, Destin Hill, Trey Benson, Jordan Travis out there.
A couple tight ends.
Yeah, a couple good SEC tight end. Yeah, an SEC tight end who's, one of the better tight ends in the entire conference that came here. Like, it's almost too good to be true. And I keep trying to check myself because I don't want to be let down when we get to these games. But if there's any reason to believe Florida State can make it to the college football playoff, it has a lot to do with the quarterback, the offensive line, and the wide receivers.
Right. And the points that can happen from that. I mean, the offensive line, it's next on our list to mention. Somebody did all the numbers, and the numbers show that our offensive line has the most returning experience of any in the country.
200 career starts.
200 plus career starts across that line. Think about that for a second. Think about where we were.
I love thinking about it.
Think about where we were a couple of years ago. Where, it was like Matador City, and quarterbacks being chalk lined on the turf. And, you can't say enough about Coach Norvell and
Alex
Atkins and recruiting and getting guys in here and transfer, you name it. It didn't matter how it happened, what method, whether it was transfers, building guys from scratch or whatever. But we are currently at a place where, and I also saw another ranking that showed our offensive line being in the top 5 in the country for next year. Now, obviously, this is all prognosticating what could happen. But man, the only thing, I mean, injury, obviously, but the other thing that could stymie us would be just, like I've said before, I've got 75 presents under the tree. Which one do I play with first?
But don't you think it's more
you can kind of paralyze yourself?
Don't you think it reminds me of Joe Burrow and that LSU team where they just had, 4, 6'4", 6'5" wide receivers that could all ball. It's very similar. When you have a good offensive line, and not only it would be even if our quarterback was a statue and couldn't move, let's say we had Tom Brady as in college, and you had a good offensive line and wide receivers, you're still going to put up points. But in the rare circumstance in which the line does break contain, they can't protect Travis, he's gone in a phone booth. Like, there's not going to be this nonstop Jordan Travis having to run the ball. In fact, last year we got halfway through the season and me and Vince were like, he really hasn't even had to run. Is he ever
going to run the ball? Because he didn't have to.
Yeah. And what do you know? It's the first year that, aside from that one game, he was relatively healthy most of the year, aside from, that one little small spat. But the thing I really love about the story is that Jordan Travis was the quarterback when it was the worst, and now when it's going to be the best. So you have a quarterback right now that is comfortable behind an offensive line because he has been comfortable under terrible offensive line play. It's so interesting.
Yeah, we lost you briefly there for a second, but I think you got back in pretty quick, or maybe you lost me. Can't really tell. But suffice it to say that with the weapons and the line play, we're going to have a chance to even, if we're going to have to win a shootout, we're going to be able to do it. So that's exciting for sure. Ryan, do you care about the Directors Cup?
Not at all, Vince. I think it's fun because it tells you where your programs as a whole, how they're doing on the entire university scale. But I didn't really want to look at it because we're still fine. We're still in the top 20, but our baseball team struggling, basketball team struggling, football team
Yeah.
finally picking it up. So we've been higher on that list.
We have been higher. We've been a lot higher, actually.
Yeah.
But it is good to know. At least it was good to see that we still were in the top 20, even considering, the catastrophic seasons that two of the major sports had this year.
Hey, but you know what? None of those Florida teams won championships.
No, they did not.
Florida, sorry, man. You were close.
I'm telling you what, I love a World Series, and I will enjoy, I don't enjoy watching a rival win a lot, that's for sure.
Yeah.
But that final series was fun. Like the first game was, man, that was a close game, and the next two were just complete blowouts. And luckily, our rival came out on the correct end of that.
Yeah, and basically the entire city of Miami is just getting, teased for the entire season in multiple sports. So that's also enjoyable.
Right.
We have a former colleague that I'm sure was none too disheartened about the Miami Heat. It's coming so close yet so far. But listen, recruiting, we're going to say it again. And what I'm hearing is that they're lining up the recruits
here, Ryan. I don't know.
To commit in around the same time. So I think that you're going to see sometime in the early part of July, multiple players commit, maybe even on the same day. From what we've heard, they had some commitments that the players did commit to them, and they just decided not to announce it because they want to line it up and make it actually, like a nice organized showing. So I think we're about to have a whole lot of commits coming up soon.
Yeah, I mean, we're a lot is a word that could beat a lot of things. But right now we're sitting at 11, right? If we're sitting at 11 commits, I think we're on one of the rankings, we're in, 25 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the teams that are in the top 5 have, 20, 21, 25 commits already. So just from a numbers game, once we start to pick up the pace there, you'll see if the recruiting rankings matter to you, and history suggests that they should, that the recruiting rankings should matter to you. You obviously want to be top 5 if you can do it, but if you can get top 10, consistently, then your team is going to consistently challenge for championships and occasionally a national title. So, but yeah, we're going to see a couple, and just to line up a few of them. Jonathan Daniels looking good for that one. Jalewis Solomon looking good for that one. Micah Danzy, he's a Tally kid, looking good there. James Madison, who's a wide receiver, they really want him, and I think he's been close to pulling the trigger a few times.
Yeah,
looking good there. Elijah Moore, who I don't know, is he an Ohio State commit or at least Ohio State lean big time?
No, he opened up his commitment again.
Okay, so we're looking good there. Now, one of the ones that we're not looking good on anymore is Keelan Fox. There was a lot of back and forth between him and Landon Thomas about being a 1-2 punch on the tight ends side. But from what I've read, Ryan, you probably read the same stuff, and that it is Keelan Fox wants to be the number one guy, and I don't know that that's going to happen at Florida State. We absolutely
and I'm not worried
want
about
him.
it. We have so many tight ends. It's
but
fine.
We absolutely want him. This is not one of those things where a lot of people are like, well, if they don't want to go,
but we will be fine if
trash. Yeah, we'll be fine. But we definitely want him. And the other one that was interesting was the wide receiver Tawaski. He had committed earlier this year and then had not been back on campus. And then he was going to visit other schools, and there was some smoke about him switching commitments. Well, he was back on campus this past weekend and solidified that. So whatever was going on with the relationship there seems to be cleaned up.
The only thing I want to see added to this list is some defensive players, Vince.
Yes, please. That would be nice, and linebacker would be top among them.
Though I'm convinced, Vince, and this might be a little maybe just in the moment, but I'm convinced that Florida State is happy getting those hybrid safety corners that have good size, that are good athletes, like the stereotypical athlete recruit that can play linebacker and being able to cover in space and not necessarily having a traditional linebacker. Because you look around the country, no matter who you are, you're getting points put up on you. And you're getting points put up on you, not usually because of the run game. You're usually getting points put up on you because they have a running quarterback and wide receivers that can ball. So I'm thinking that, for those of you who are waiting for like the next Nigel Bradham to come up and be a star here, I think the linebacker world, for better for worse, I mean, some people love that old school, like I'm going to hit you linebacker. But I think more important these days is cover linebackers, and that will get you through, I think, 90% of your games until you get to like maybe the upper echelon. And then if someone does have a difference maker at linebacker, it's great. But I really believe coverage is more important than actually stopping the run these days.
I don't know. I don't know if I agree with that or disagree. I would just say that while the coaching staff may feel comfortable that they have some bodies that can fulfill a linebacker depth scenario if needed, I don't doubt for a second that they would rather have some 5-star linebackers on the roster.
Sure.
It just, I mean, from a defensive standpoint, at each level of the defense, you do not want to have one area of your team being so far removed ability or talent wise from the rest of it. It just creates a vacuum of where teams can poke at you and prod at you.
Yeah.
So now I think, like we've said this, our starting linebackers are fine. I mean, they're better than fine. They're good. They may be close to being great, the tandem of them. But behind that, though, we got to do something, man. We got to start. We got to start casting a wider net. I don't know what the deal is there, but hopefully we start to pick it up a little bit.
Well, if you're going to have a light linebacker room, you better have a dominant defensive line. So it's one of those things that if you can get pressure with 4, I mean, if you have some studs up there that are consistently getting pressure and stopping the run on the defensive line, you can get away with a lot of coverage corners and safeties playing, up on the line and things like that. So I don't think it's an emergency now, not time to hit the panic button now, but I think next year, for sure we need some good commits on the linebacker position. But what we need from all of you out there? We need likes, we need subscriptions, we need you to share the love. So
we do.
We're here every Thursday. We've been here live every Thursday for weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks. And come the season, we're going to be doing this live on Thursday. We're going to be doing live from Doak Campbell and home games. We're going to be doing live on location, maybe from some sports bars for away games. So we're going to be doing a ton of content. So you're going to want to be a part of it, be a part of the conversation. All of our lives are open to comments. We read them on the air. So tell your friends about us, and let's start a nice community around this season that should be really special.
Yeah, what Ryan's getting at is we're not giving up. So even though, I'm wearing an Eagles shirt, right? This is not an indicator of me giving up on our team. This is an indicator of me being the proud dad of a incoming Georgia Southern Eagle. You may not be able to see this hat too well.
Oh, this is like a decision day thing.
This is decision day. Hats on the table.
You didn't throw the FSU.
No,
hat,
I didn't throw the hat. The hat's still here.
Yeah.
But we are here for orientation for my daughter in Statesboro. And so I have another team to root for. And just remember, in case you're like wondering what the deal is here, remember Georgia Southern beat a rival of ours a number of years ago without throwing a pass. And so
still one of the greatest wins of all time.
They will always have a special place in my heart, but they have an even more special place in my heart now I'm going to be coming to a few games here this fall as well.
You're gonna be a busy man.
Be a busy man. And Ryan, if I can indulge a little bit, we may throw in the occasional Georgia Southern minute or two into the Garnet and Old Show.
Sure, we'll maybe throw in a 1 minute preview of or recap of their games.
Yeah, absolutely. I need to familiarize myself with the roster, and so I can speak intelligently about them.
Vince, you need to get in with the collective, who I'm sure they have one. They got to.
They probably do. Do. But yeah, so we definitely have no inside info and no contacts, and we have a little bit of a problem with the Georgia Southern deal.
Yeah.
But not for long.
Hey Vince, you're house divided now. Truly house divided. One daughter at Florida State, one daughter at Georgia Southern.
Yeah, and there the two shall meet, I hope. So I think the softball teams played each other this past year, but if the football teams ever play each other, I think my daughter knows that I will root for her team to play well and for Florida State to win.
I hope if you guys ever play, if Florida State ever plays Georgia Southern or anything meaningful, that you wear a shirt that just says "Go Team."
Go Team, yeah. Go Sports Ball Team.
Sports ball, yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, we appreciate all of you for watching. Vince, and go enjoy your time at Georgia Southern. Garnet Old, no inside info, no contacts, no problem. Have a great night, everyone. Go Noles.
Go Noles.